wear many hats: chief value officer, chief facilitation officer, and
I would like to share that I'm really privileged to have a panel of eminent speakers and wonderful CFOs with diversified experience to talk about, the future of finance for CFOs. I'd like to hear from each of you about the dynamic roles of the CFO as per your career experiences. Let's probably start from Anjali.
Hi, good evening, Mukesh and my co-panelists and all the people present. So it's an honor to be part of this panel. So a quick introduction. My name is Anjali Bhadpade. I head finance. I'm CFO for DHL Express. And most of you are my clients also. Dynamic role of finance, Mukesh, honestly, I can't underline the importance of dynamic role of CFO more. So last decade has seen some extreme changes in the way the businesses are done, the way finance function is evolved. Our environment is changing, our customers are changing, and so are the expectations from finance. Obviously, the role of CFO is changing too. And in the current pandemic environment, it's highlighted even more. So one needs to, as a CFO, one needs to strike a fine balance of value preservation, which is a very traditional role of finance, but also move to the value creation, which is expected from finance in the modern business. So we need to support and guide business to adapt to the changing environment. I know traditionally finance is always linked with core financial activities, cash and liquidity management, resources efficiently, and ensure adherence to the policies and standards. We are all raised up, at least my generation was raised up saying we have to become a watchdog. Though personally, I never contributed to that idea. But in short, that's not going anywhere. It's intrinsic to our finance function. But with the new technologies, they bring more opportunities for us. It's becoming more, finance function is becoming more business partner, supporting key business initiatives and influencing business decisions. So this evolution needs a new way of working. It needs investing into technologies and developing new approach, invest into new skill sets. It's about bringing in efficiencies in the traditional finance activities and redeploy those energies into a more supporting and business driving role. So in my mind, to me, CFO role is certainly changing or evolving from being a specialist to a catalyst. So that's my take on the dynamic role of CFO. Mukesh, over to you.
Thank you, Anjali. Well said. CFO are becoming a catalyst. Over to Dipesh. Why don't you share your perspective?
Yeah, thanks, Mukesh, and hello everybody, and hello to friends as well. Good evening. I think the core essence of a CFO role, which is to create value for a company's stakeholders, that hasn't changed. I feel the mechanisms that the CFO needs to deploy in today's day and age of unprecedented disruption, and Anjali spoke about that as well. I think that's what is changing. So an example of a dynamic role of a CFO is navigating through uncertainty in today's time. Mr. Jaju spoke about in the earlier session about VUCA. So how do you respond as a CFO under these times, right? Things are changing. First quarter, if you see India Inc. results, and now we are in May, see difference. I think the challenge in terms of the CFO's dynamism is going to be how you take decisions in this uncertainty period. That's the key. And I think it's also about the speed of those decisions. And therefore, the CFOs will require adaptive leadership because technical problems can be solved by technical experts, right? The key aspects of adaptive leadership of a CFO would be high EQ, constant learning, deep sense of character, and being very transparent. And I also feel that in this dynamic environment, CFOs will have to disrupt their function. There is no choice, and will need to evolve from the fiduciary duty to being a entrepreneurial type of a CFO, to being an advocate for automation and digital. And Anjali mentioned, I agree with her totally, being a curator for talent. But I think, if you just step back, there are so many things in this environment that CFO needs to grapple with dynamism. The challenge is, how do you keep changing these hats as a CFO and move with agility so that you can have a compliance hat, a strategic partner hat, an automation hat, a technologies hat, or a hat of a business partner? Back to you, Mukesh.
Yeah, thank you so much. The adaptive leadership and also in the current VUCA, how, as a CFO, everyone performs to help the organization. Thank you so much for your inputs. I would like to hear from Darpan as well on the topic.
Thanks, Mukesh. I think, I think we all are in violent agreement on the fact that the job of the CEO as well as primarily the CFO is stakeholder value creation or economic value maximization, and that has not changed. Now, there might be different flavors of the market. There might be different economic curves where one priority for finance leaders may take more precedence over other priorities. But the inherent paradoxes of this job, the inherent, what you can say, struggles within certain elements of this job is what makes this job very, very dynamic. First thing is, how do you balance growth and governance? We cannot say that, our job is only to be a business partner, or if I'm doing that job, that's good enough. If I'm enabling growth, to enable sustainable growth, you have to, come in with a sharp, idea of what governance should be and how it should be done. So that, managing the balance between growth and governance, managing the balance between short term and long term. Okay, you may be tempted to take, organizations may be tempted to take short term decisions, or how do you keep that side of the larger pie? The speed versus wisdom. Now, I'm not saying that if you are responding early, you are not giving a wise answer, but there is always this need to be 100% sure, which is part of wisdom, part of caution. And while delivering, in today's time, very, very, I think this counter, these counter, very, very contrarian forces. CFO has to juggle between them, find the right balance, and that is where the dynamism comes from. And I think people who can handle that paradox, handle these paradoxes better, they succeed well as a CFO. So that would be my take on the dynamism inherent to the role.
Thank you so much, Darpan. To be a sensible person and also balance many perspectives is what I take it from this. And Tanmay, over to you. Would you like to share some thoughts?
Sure. Thanks, Mukesh. I think the people before me have beautifully covered most of, largely the amount of changes that are and the pressures that the CFO role is expected to perform under, or the whole point about the pace of change in VUCA, or the point that Darpan beautifully spoke of about the balancing that the role requires to do. I think I'll just add to what everybody has spoken by pointedly talking about 2-3 things which are actually coming from and just expanding from what everybody has said. More and more people, if you just ask them, and when they're looking for their CFOs, they just talk about a CFO profile where they are specifically saying, we want someone who can really partner the business well. And that kind of becomes so pronounced these days that it's unbelievable that part of the role is expected to be bigger. And that's getting driven from the pace of change, like people said, but it's not just about coping up with the change, but the CFOs are being expected to be the change agent. So essentially, whichever business transformation that you're seeing in the organization, the CFOs are part of it or leading it. So that's a very, very significant agenda that the people need to drive. The part about control and compliance, and for people who work for listed entities, it's amazing how rapidly newer and newer requirements are coming up. Every few months I see SEBI coming up with something new. They suddenly come and say we need a digital insider trading tool. They suddenly come up with a newer regulation around governance, and it just disclosures are going up. So that too you have to keep up pace with. And most importantly, I think data, being on top of data, understanding data and technology is a very big, because CFOs are they have to not only digitize finance and harness the power of data, but across the business, they're inevitably expected to lead the digitization efforts and help develop talent accordingly. So those are the things that I'll add to what everybody has already said.
Great, thank you, Tanmay. So it covers up everybody's views, and also the CFO should be a change agent. So Darpan, what do you think? How CFO should be participating in strategic decision making beyond just having managing the finance?
I think what we all dwelt on a while back, and almost all of us infer to, is that one core job, prime core job of CFO or any finance leader is to sustainably drive economic value. And when you talk about that, there is a very old framework that from data comes insight, from insights to from data comes in analysis, from analysis to insight, and then from insights you reach to foresights. And that should be the the model on which any data specialist or finance guy should be working on. Because when you talk about foresight, you are talking about emerging trends. You are talking about how this might impact my industry. You are talking about how this impact my company. So and I think finance guys are very well placed to do that for a couple of reasons. One is the understanding of entire value chain. There are very few people in the organization who would have an understanding of entire value chain as well as finance folks. Add to it the fact is that I think the number of diverse stakeholders that any finance leader in senior position or otherwise would be interacting with, be it peers, be it bankers, be it investors, be it internal stakeholders, etc. I think that itself is remarkable to build. I mean, that itself is remarkable, and that itself is a good start to building business muscle or understanding what are the business needs to go to next level. So I think while the ratio or the expectations might have been not so pronounced earlier on also, but if you talk about shareholder value maximization or economic value maximization, participation into making strategy, choosing out what are the things which should be done, which should not be done from an economic standpoint, and then ensuring that there is a review cadence around those governance which enables that strategy to happen. I think these are all things which most of the finance folks, if you take a just show of hands on this panel itself, you'll find that almost all of us are doing that. You might have a strategy officer, but finally that strategy has to cascade into numbers. It has to cascade into actions. And that's where, with their superior business knowledge, with their superior understanding of value chain, with their ability to package all this and bring this all together, finance guys are very well placed to do that.
Yeah, really well said. The knowledge of the business and also knowledge of the numbers definitely helps. Okay, over to BP. Maybe please hear from you. You had long stint in BP and Castrol in several roles. How do you manage the strategic decision making and sharing views on on eye-to-eye basis to a business head or a CEO, where there can be differences of view? Maybe it could be sometimes a point of ego as well. So what do you think?
Yeah, no, thanks, Mukesh. I think great question, really good question. I think I'll build on what Darpan said, because in strategy there is a design, and then there is an execution, and then there are enablers which help execute the strategy, right? Once the design is done, which of course CFOs have a role to play, an important one, and we've all discussed that. I think in the execution stage is where rubber hits the road, because many times there will be proposals which probably do not fit with the strategy, right? And there are exciting proposals. So I think CFO's role is to, as you said, look eye to eye and respectfully remind people about what the strategy is, what is the guardrail, and say no to a plan or to an execution, right? Many times you jump into execution, then realize, well, this is not strategy, right? So at that beginning is where the CFO needs to come in and say, this does not fit with our strategy, and therefore let's not do it. The other bit is going to be, having said no, then there is an execution plan. How do you make sure that it is executed ruthlessly, right? So there needs to be a very good tracking mechanism, because there is this whole thing we all CFOs grapple with, right? Monthly results, quarterly results, yearly results, then 5-yearly. Yeah. So, I mean, how does it all integrate? And it's very important to manage that. We try to do it through strategic KPIs, both financial and non-financial in Castrol. We also focus on digital, which is the enabler aspect of it. Because I think the role of CFO is also to be very clear and ask a question that, are these enablers being thought through properly, and is there enough time and investment and resources being freed up to deliver those enablers? Digital is a classic example, right? So for example, in our organization, CFOs sit on the digital governance board and make sure that there is enough traction on digital plans as well as execution of the digital, because when you are under pressure, some of these technology spends get cut the first, right? Intuitively, right? And that's where I think CFO comes in to make sure that if you do this, then there is a risk to the delivery of strategy. I just want to add one more point and link to what Tanmay said, because he talked about controls. Yeah, I think in strategy as well, there is an important aspect that CFO needs to think about around controls. What do I mean by that? Now, when you are an organization, I mean, like ours, which has hundreds and thousands of consumers, right? We have mechanics, truck drivers, and we do incentive programs. Now, if we want to do something which is an incentive program to make sure that it reaches the right consumer, we need to A, enable technology, right? And B, make sure that controls and processes are there in place. And then only there will be the effectiveness of the spend. Otherwise, money spent is wasted, right? It will not be intended for the right purpose, and you may not be able to deliver your strategy. So I think that's the way, and I'm just trying to give a very operational example on how this would be happen. Over to you, Mukesh.
Yeah, thank you, Dipesh, to explain and also say how CFO can help in differentiating strategy and execution, and also help the business, and also covering the control part. Just to share, in our organization also we have something called Rapid. It is a tool to have which with all inputs to make a decision. So Rapid is there should be a reason, there should be acceptance, there should be a point of view, there should be inputs, and finally you take decisions.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And Tanmay, having worked in so many large and global organizations, what do you think, the kind of upskilling required for a CFO in the current scenario, and to make them stay relevant?
So I'll just put 2-3 simple points, Mukesh, and very simply, I saw this in the earlier session as well, and people talked so much about it. So most of us do need to get more and more comfortable with technology and digital. It's amazing that how much is talked about it, but when you actually sit down to it, you realize that it does need a little bit of patience, because you don't need to drive, you just need to be driving it. You don't need to be knowing it fully, but just understanding the amount of changes that are happening, because to be able to use it well or to make investments, decisions in technology, both ways, you need to know it very well. So that is one, I think, upskilling that everybody needs to do, just to read up, just to be part of sessions like this and learn. I think the other couple of those, I think, are mostly, I would say, is on the softer side of things, because finance folks, in the end we kind of grow up from this whole backroom driving So therefore, the communication skills, because you are, like I said, a change agent or a catalyst, and you have to influence the entire organization. So developing that communications, ability to be able to influence the entire organization, because the expectations are much larger. There's a second part, and it's easier said than done. Thirdly, again, coming as typically the finance guys come to, and we've spoke so much about the number of newer developments and COVID accelerating things. Learning to be agile, because like Darpan said, all of this short term versus long term versus growth versus governance, all of that. Today, the pace of things have changed, and finance folks intuitively, we do pause and think. That's great. But I think the speed that the organizations today are expecting us to work on is much, much faster. So I think those two things I would say on this side. Lastly, newer things are coming to stay relevant. Example, the ESG investing has come in big way. So, just developing ESG skills, figuring that what's happening on an environmental, social governance side, and how do you really help the organization be on the fore. So those are the newer developments that you need to, again, reskill, be focused on, be aware of.
Great, Tanmay. In fact, I just want to also quote something, the earlier session, CFO of Bajaj was talking about, right to sit on the table and right to talk. Right to sit on table is, when you have knowledge of course, your functional areas, and also, reasonable knowledge of the business, then you have the, credibility and yearning to write, to sit on the table. And when you write to talk is when, probably you have working and operational level knowledge also, that then you connect and then you influence. So, that said, one is knowledge and also the communication, and, that really works. Thank you. Anjali, it could be insightful from you, for all of us, as you have said, we are customers as well, but on the lighter side. So you are from global organization, in a fast global logistics company. What do you think, the CFO should be upskilling himself to stay relevant?
Hi, I agree with Tanmay completely. Tanmay talked about earlier topic, he talked about finance function is expected to be the change agent, right? In reality, however, most finance teams are not prepared to meet that wider demand in terms of skill set, in terms of the organizational structure, and in terms of mindset. And I'll explain why I'm saying that. The finance function is by nature very, very conservative, very detailed oriented, and rule oriented. To make a transition from a more forward looking model requires a lot of innovative thinking. Unfortunately, many finance functions, they are not supported structurally to do that. So when we talk about upskilling for CFO, in my mind, it is not only related to technology or tools or soft skills, but it is also related to the overall mindset. The role of CFO traditionally is too focused on risk mitigation, so much so that many a times we completely overlook the opportunity. So if the one thing that I have to talk about upskilling for CFO, I think we must change our mindsets to focus on the opportunities and possibilities. Only then we will be able to set direction for our function and our people. Mukesh, you talked about, yes, we are a global logistics company. We invest a lot in technology, and that's a business driver that we have. And we have implemented a lot of new technology in our business. But to be very honest, when it comes to finance, I think we are lagging behind a little as compared to other functions. Automation is dramatically changing the size, the structure, and the delivery model for our function. So it will reduce the automated execution, and it will only simplify the finance organization. So I was reading somewhere that in the next 10 years, about 70% of the controls and the execution, the routine task execution will be automated. The key to success here is to create a blueprint of a long-term view of, say, in the next 10 years, what will my finance function will look like? What do I need to do to add value to the business? And what do I need to do now to reach that goal? I think that foresight is extremely important, which traditionally we don't do. So there we hear a lot of new technologies. We talk about RPA, machine learning. We talk about cloud computing, blockchain. Sometimes it can be mind-boggling. Do CFOs need to really know what these technologies are? In my mind, no. We don't need to be the expert. But what we need to do is we need to understand and be aware of the potential and possibilities, and to visualize how we can make best use of this technology. Investment, as everyone said, ROI is, I think it's a non-argument. Investing in technology is given if we have to survive. But this ability to lead our teams, upskilling our teams, and leading by head, heart, and guts, that will be the key for CFO if we have to be a successful business partner. Over to you, Mukesh.
Thank you, Anjali. Well said. Just taking over from you further, I will go to the page, but before that, I just sort of saying, the last 1.5 to 2 years of the COVID situation has actually compelled everyone also to pass the technology requirement, whether it is finance or many of the functions. In fact, who would have probably dreamt, we will be doing a remote physical statutory compliance and statutory audit, from remote. So those are the reality these days. And Dipesh, the technology is ever changing. It is of course good for good. What do you think it has challenged the CFO and to upskill himself or the finance function?
Yeah, sure, Mukesh. So let me cover 2 points here. One is how it is challenged the function itself, right? Because what is also happening is technology now has created, I think, to a large extent, a level playing field for everyone who adopts it, right? So same set of data can be available to competitors as well. And no amount of data is going to be sufficient. So one upskilling that will be required in the advent of technology will be, how do you draw fast and differential actionable insights? So how are you going to draw that insight from your data to have a first mover advantage or to perform better than anybody else as well? So one is, of course, technology for efficiency, which obviously there is a business case for that. The other one is technology to be a differentiator for business, right? So, I'll give you an example. Like, one of the things that aspect we struggle with is our input cost is dependent on oil, right? And you see the variance in oil, and we import oil as well. So there is a Forex angle there as well. So how do we make sure that we use technology for advantage, but that data is also available to everybody, right? So as a market leader, how do we make interventions through various modeling that helps mitigate that risk? So that's one thing which is a challenge always. But then if you're a market leader, you need to stay ahead and make those decisions. So that's one thing I would like to share. The other one is on a technology. I would say this was about the function and how finance would respond. The other one is a business angle, right? Technology innovation in every business will happen. And as CFOs need to keep an eye on the changes, right? Because there will be a lot of disruptions, and disruption sometimes bring chaos. And therefore, again, from a strategy angle, you need to be ahead. One example is, how do you keep trend of the mega trends, right? There are going to be electric vehicles in future. So what does that mean? That's a technology change, right? So as CFO's role is to make sure that in this disruption, the business agenda is managed. You have a strategy which is proactive. And what we've done is, we also feel this is a great opportunity, right? Because it helps to reach a net zero ambition, which is our global strategy as well. So from our point of view, we try to use that as an advantage. And that's what I think many businesses try to do, that if we have, let's say, EV fluid, ready, then when EV hits India, it's going to take some time, then we are ready and we will respond to it. So I think those are the two aspects around the technology. The only other bit I would say is, what is happening right now in many organizations is various technological initiatives have been taken, right? 3 years, 4 years down the line, you will have these lots of apps, lots of digital enablers. I think, how are you going to integrate all of them? I think that's going to be a bigger challenge, right? To have a very consistent consumer experience. So, I mean, I just feel when I reflect that technology is definitely good. It will bring challenges. Ultimately, from a finance point of view, some of it is dependent on the past data. It projects future. So, probably the future is somewhere human-led, technology-enabled. So that's probably my summary in terms of how CFOs should respond and what challenges we will face and are facing.
Okay.
Back to
Yeah. Oh, well said, really well said. Tell me, what is your perspective on this?
So Deepesh covered beautifully about how a lot of data that is available, you as an organization is also available with everybody else. But I would just also add to that the change that is happening because of availability of data within the organization per se. So there's an inside view which has an implication on the finance function per se, because it's essentially democratization of data. So earlier, the data that finance used to just feel pride in presenting in a beautiful way is today available to all functions anyways. So structurally, the rules are changing, because you are essentially now, there are people who are just, kind of assigned to different departments and who can just do that piece of providing information, and it's completely gone. And most of the large organizations, it goes to different. So that makes a big change for the role of finance guys. And number two, all of this data and all of this automation changes your job, because while you were from a provider or an analyst, I think the role changes to what Darpan initially spoke of, is to be able to give insight. And in future, those people who can give insight from the data will be the ones who will be good finance folks, because data anyways is available, and analysis, and with with all the artificial intelligence, machine learning, a lot of analysis and part of repetitive insight from the machines. So you have to do the insight to foresight journey and continuously be at it. So that's the second change I would say happening. And obviously, like Deepesh, the second point that Deepesh covered, on the tech side of things, and the number of changes that are happening across on everything. I mean, we used to feel very proud talking, we've led a ERP change, or we've done, implemented a cyber security, or how our, automated our forensic audits in the companies are, and beautiful dashboards that we've created. But I mean, in last 1 year, in the forums that I've been to, the number of CFOs who've done bots or, robotic automation, and, is like, half, majority of them, and that and everybody is driving and moving to newer technologies, which are in different functional areas, incorporating, artificial intelligence or machine learning, and getting external, so many startups to come and help you out with data analytics with a completely newer ways. So it's revolving, almost like a, I would say the curve is very steep in terms of the changes. And that's the third part for CFOs to keep completely track of, because guess what, 10 years from now, it will be a completely different world.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Tanmay. Maybe 10 years or probably next couple of years, it will be completely different. In fact, I have been hearing, a lot of my friends are there, even in countries like USA. These days, they are talking about after this pandemic, and they have realized finance function doesn't have to go to office itself. They are saying they will reduce the lease rent of the New York office. Why do you have a office in New York, and they're better, work from home. So everything is happening like that. So Anjali, just on this topic itself, one question I have, probably it could help others as well as me as well. When you say, ROI and, technology we should be investing, how do you justify that to probably a business owner who always sees the cost and the, maximization of profit? So the questions could be, whether you can redeploy the manpower to some other area if you are able to do it through technology. How do you answer?
Mukesh, I think I lost the question. Either it's a connectivity issue at my end or your end. If you can repeat it, it'll help.
Could be my end as well. I was asking, how do you answer to a business owner or who is running the P&L when he asks, okay, I'm okay to deploy technology, but how will you redeploy the manpower, which is a significant question. Where you will redeploy and how that.
Yeah. Agree. Mukesh, I think that's the question when we upgrade our organization and the way we function. I think most of us are faced with that question day in and day out. Right? So deploying of technology. So I was reading somewhere, and we also had this internal discussion within our own organization that you move to the technology. Okay, it's given because now, as I said, deploying a technology is not a choice; it's a mandate, right? Because your customers are demanding it. So, for example, all my customers, they don't want to call the customer service; they want to have apps download, and they want the control of the whole transaction rather than they want calling us, right? So I think there is never a question of whether you want to invest in technology, but what do we do with people? And that again brings us back to the upskilling, right? So we earlier talked about upskilling of CFO, but when I talked in the earlier question, when I talked about visualize how your function will look like, what kind of skill sets will you need over the next 10 years, and what do you need to do now? How do you upskill your team? So we always have these discussions within our teams that will we lay off people? No, I think the skill set changes. So we have three options, right? You either upskill your people, so they are doing X and you upskill them to do X+1, or you reskill your people because there is a completely new set of skill set that is needed when you change the business model or change the technology. So you reskill them to a different skill set. But sometimes you also need to bring in new skill in the business, right? So deploy, have a short-term cross-functional movements, projects, so that people are able to relate to what's happening in the wider business and they're able to adapt to that skill set. And as an organization, we support them in adopting that skill set. So I think redeployment of manpower is always possible if you plan in advance and we help them reskill themselves.
Thank you, Anjali.
Yeah.
We just like to touch upon an important and last topic of the day. Can you please share how diversity and inclusion in the finance sector helps the business, organization, and industry as a whole? What is your perspective?
So I think it's a topic very close to my heart. So I'll be happy to talk about it. Is the diversity needed? Of course, it is needed. Does that make business sense? 100% it makes business. But I will look at diversity as a more broader topic, right? Traditionally, we talk about diversity in terms of gender diversity, age diversity, and inclusion. So it's all related to the human capital of an organization. But to me, diversity is a wider term. If we want to have a sustainable business, we have to diversify all the resources that are available to us. Human capital is one, your technology, your approach, your skill set. So you have to have a diverse skill set, you have to have diverse technology, you have to have diverse work methods. Only then you will be able to add value to business. So, but that's more on a wider term. popularly we talk about diversity in terms of gender diversity and inclusion, right? So most of the businesses today have one common issue or the challenge, that is attracting and retaining talent, right? Because there are many a times these unconscious biases at work or sleeping biases at work, there is a pool of talent available in a section of our population which we are never tapping. So it makes perfect business sense if we tap onto that talent source and then we retain and attract talent. It definitely makes a business sense. You get more sharper views, you get broader perspectives. The brainstorming sessions bring to the table wider thought process. And I always like to think how you do business is always driven by your customers, right? If your customers are diverse, whether it's a diversity of region, it's a diversity of religion, it's a diversity of gender. If you have to align with the customer needs, you have to have a diverse workforce yourself. Otherwise, you will never be able to align with the customer expectation. So diversity does pay. I generally, on a lighter note, just imagine a family who has the members of same gender, same age, same skill set, and how the family will look like, right? And it's the same with business. So diversity definitely pays. And in DHL Express, and I'm particularly talking about logistics because traditionally, logistics industry is a very male-dominated industry, right? We hardly see used to see diversity there, but we at the DHL and especially DHL Express, there is a huge focus on diversity. So our senior management team has 30% women. We have women on the front line. So you won't be surprised if you see a courier coming and delivering a parcel at your doorstep and she's a woman, because we do have a frontline courier as women. We have people clearances done by women. So there is a huge focus on the diversity, and we are finding a lot of business value in that.
Great,
Over to you,
great.
Mukesh.
Yeah, great. Very well said, Anjali. And diversity in human, of course, gender, religion, so many things. And diversity in technology, and also, to also meet the expectation of diversified customers. Very well said. Dipesh, would you like to add your views on this?
Yeah, sure, Mukesh. Thank you. And I could see Anjali speak with passion about this subject, and really, very heartening to note that. Maybe I'll just talk about. Totally agreed. And we have a huge agenda on diversity in our organization as well. I'll just talk about finance because I think you were asking. I think in finance, diversity principally doesn't make a difference. It's the same concept. But I have seen over the period of last 10, 15 years, 20 years, and I'll just talk about the gender diversity. I think there has been a huge change in the finance function, not only in my company, but I've seen many of the companies. And on gender, the women who have come into finance department, logically bring a tremendous amount of difference in thinking. The way they approach numeracy and business insights is very different than what I've seen with the male colleagues, right? And it's a great learning experience as a leader, team leader as well, because if I see from that point of view, bringing that diversity of thoughts is really great for business and for function as well.
Thank you, Dipesh. Basically, if I am also professionally a CFO, probably happen to be a moderator, but I'm privileged to have all of you. My takeaways are, basically, as Anjali said, the CFO has to be a catalyst, and Tanmay said he should be a change agent, and change agent is everything, whether it is technology or whether the way we do the business and drive the business or control and compliances strategy. So, it was really a useful session of, having a perspective. So I also want to get some quick 1 or 2 sentence takeaway from all of you of last 30 minutes. So maybe we can start from the first.
Thanks, Mukesh. I think, first of all, honored and honored to have been on this panel with you all, and thankful to the team which coordinated this. I think broadly, when it comes to the cusp at which business and finance operate, I think we all seem to have the same progressive ideas that finance is definitely not a backroom operator. It is definitely a partner in growth. I think in various forms, whether it is about the dynamism of the job, whether it's about the changing landscape of on contribution of strategic inputs from finance. I think that's where we are completely aligned, and that's very heartening because and that has been there for very long. I believe that many of the large organizations they have been built on the blood and sweat of finance professionals. Even large business houses like Tata's, Godrej's, you will find that finance is a very well respected function in those places. And that's because of participation into strategy making and then execution. So I good to hear that validation. Good to be on this panel. One thing which I just want to can't help but talk about diversity and inclusion is that I believe that these two words are different and they have to go in tandem. Diversity is when you get diverse people on board. There might be gender diversity, there might be ethnic diversity, there might be class diversity, and so on and so forth. Inclusion is when you create an environment which enables this to bloom, and that, to my mind, is a bigger haul. And I think that's something that all of us need to internalize. I think, as Anjali said, couldn't agree more that a diverse workforce is more representative of our customers, of our consumers. So I think, and that's something that all of us continually need to remind ourselves that in day-on-day basis, are we allowing other people to bloom? Are we allowing, are not allowing, are we creating that environment where people feel comfortable talking, where people feel talking, about issues and tough issues, easy issues, whatever, that is what inclusion is all about. So that is one thing I think while we ended on that note, but I think that's one takeaway that I think all of us should continue to remind ourselves and ask ourselves day on day, because there are deep-rooted biases, there are deep-rooted behaviors. So I think that's one thing which I take away from here. Mukesh, can't hear you. I think you're on mute.
I was on mute. So, Dipesh, I wanted to hear from you also. What is your takeaway?
Yeah. No, firstly, echo what Darpan said. Privilege and honor to be part of this discussion. And thank you to you, Mukesh, for facilitating. A fantastic job done. I mean, in the interest of time, I'll just say a couple of things quickly. Firstly, I've learned a lot speaking to other panelists, so that was really enriching. I think I would just like to say one line that the role of finance and role of CFO, no matter what we do, is going to be requiring a constant churn, right? Whether it is strategic partner, whether it is a technology partner, whatever you may want to call it, ultimately the core role of CFO is to make sure that we create value. And for every change that happens in the business, I think Tanmay said that you got to be a catalyst to that change. Whichever way you got involved, you drive it, you support it, right? Things are changing very, very fast. So we will have to be on our toes, and therefore we need to keep upskilling, changing skills, learning, and unlearning. I think the difficult task is to unlearn and let go, right? So that's something that we need to, as a function and as professionals, keep an eye on.
Thank you so much. Anjali, a few words from you as well.
Yeah, Mukesh, and I completely agree with Darpan and Dipesh and Tanmay. So if I have to summarize my takeaway in just one sentence, I would say the finance function, as whether it's a CFO or as a function, I think it is imperative that we are open to change. It is also imperative that we cultivate a futuristic thinking, and our focus is to be always on how do we do value conservation and also value creation. So how do we add value to business? if we have to stay relevant. I think that's the mindset that we have to adopt as a function.
Well